Hello everyone, and thank you for listening to another episode of DJ Dell's Dynamic Music Podcast, brought to you by ExtremeCarCleaning.com. Hello once again everybody, and thank you for listening. I'm DJ Dell 523, and I'm sitting here thinking, what should we talk about today? And you know what? The last few weeks we've been talking about things that have been a little more on a serious nature, and I figured, you know what, I would lighten things up a little bit and talk about something kind of fun. At least I found it fun, and you know what, you can listen to this and maybe it'll bring back memories for you, or maybe give you a little something to think about. Anyway, that is the world of professional wrestling and what it means to you and what other people think of you for liking professional wrestling. For me, I can tell you that for years I've been a person who's been a fan of wrestling. I go back to the early 80s watching wrestling, and it's funny because it brings back great memories for me, being with my grandparents and watching wrestling events. And then when I got a bit older, going into bars before I was even old enough to go into bars, but they would let us go in just to watch the pay-per-view. And it was an amazing time. It was fun. It was exciting. We got good laughs and everything else. It was just a good time. Now, if we're being 100% honest about it, yes, some of the storylines, okay, a lot of the storylines were ridiculous. Yes, indeed, they were. However, it's entertainment. And at the end of the day, if you're entertained, that's all that matters. And I find it really funny because especially back in the day, before wrestling became what it is now, being a bit more mainstream than what it was back in the day, whenever someone would kind of call you out on being a wrestling fan, the first thing that they would bring up is the fact that, don't you know that this stuff is fake? And it's like, thinking about it as a kid, it was kind of one of those things where it was almost like a gotcha, because it's like, oh man, well, you know, it actually is, but you'd still defend it anyway because you'd be like, yeah, I like it, it's fun, you know, it's exciting in that. But then as an adult, I've taken a different opinion on that. I still enjoy wrestling. I mean, I don't watch it the way that I used to, but every once in a while when I want to have a good laugh or whatever, I will turn it on. You know, it's an escape. But for the people who will argue that watching wrestling or whatever, don't you know it's fake, I combat them with the following statement, and it's simply this. Did you know that when you read a book, the ending is predetermined? Did you know that when you watch a movie, and whether it be Rambo doing something, or you're watching the Matt Bourne or whoever, you're watching whoever, doesn't matter who it is, it's Superman, it's X-Men, it's any of these action movies and that, everything in them is stunts. It's all predetermined. But you know why we watch it? We watch it because we escape reality for that hour or hour and a half, or if it's Lord of the Rings, half a day, that you're watching these programs. You can sit back, take yourself out of your normal reality, and enter yourself into that. And at the end of the day, if you're entertained, that's all that matters. And the funny thing is, if you're a person who, a lot of times it'll be women who will throw this at you as well, it'll throw that argument at you. You read your romantic novels or your science fiction or whatever else, you know what? Those are predetermined as well. And if at the end of the day, if your only argument is, don't you know that they already know who's going to win the match, it's already predetermined, then going by that logic, you should not watch any form of entertainment other than live sports, and not boxing, because, you know, some people think that's fixed. But anyway, I digress. My point is, if you don't want to watch something where the ending is already predetermined, then you really shouldn't watch anything that is fiction based or some sports out there. You know what I mean? Like, you just shouldn't do it. But to me, it's like, that's not really an argument at all. Because at the end of the day, as long as you're entertained, that's all that matters. For people who say that, you know, these people aren't real athletes and that, if you ever get a chance to watch some wrestling documentaries and you actually can see the kind of things that these people go through, the bumps that they take, the athleticism it takes to be able to perform the stunts that they do, I'll tell you right now, even if the outcomes are predetermined, there is an art to it, because you have to be able to play with the emotions of the fans. You have to be able to either get them to really like you or to really hate you. And there's a certain talent to that, and that's why not all wrestlers get over. But at the same time, you take a look at somebody like The Rock or John Cena or the immortal Hulk Hogan. And the funny thing is, some of these guys have gone out there and they've been so successful with doing this to the point that even if you're not a wrestling fan, you know who these people are. Not only that, but because these guys have to improvise on the fly all the time, yes, a lot of the promos are nonsensical, and they're supposed to be. They're supposed to make you laugh. They're supposed to make you have a good time. But as we're starting to see now, we're getting a number of people who are former professional wrestlers who are making it in the movie industry. Because the thing is, everything that they're doing, they have to do on the fly. And if you're doing something that's episodic, like a lot of the wrestling is right now, and you have to do this on a weekly basis, you're getting acting practice. You're having to cut a promo. You have to do that. And not only are you cutting a promo one week, but if you have a character that you kind of help create that persona, you have to stick with that persona every week. So as a storyline evolves, you have to stay in character. There's something to be said of having the ability to do that. Even if you take the theatrics in the ring aside, the fact that they're able to do that, it takes a certain talent. And then you put that on top of doing the athletic moves and everything else. Even though, yes, it is predetermined who's going to win in the end, they still have to perform the stunts and that in the ring in the meantime for a certain length of time before the match is concluded. They have to tell a story in the ring. It's very easy for someone who isn't a fan to dismiss it and just say it's very easy. But the truth of the matter is, it's not as easy as it looks. To be honest with you, here in Windsor, for instance, we have Border City Wrestling. And I can tell you right now, every once in a while they come into town. With things the way they are right now, we're probably not going to see a live event in a while. But back when they were coming here, whether they were going to the college or they were going to a local high school or whatever to perform, it was great entertainment. If you wanted a cheap laugh, half the comedy was the fans and their reactions in that. You know what? Spend $10 to get a laugh, and have a good time, you can't beat it, And I know it's not for everybody, and I don't expect it to be for everybody, but at the same time, when you get people who just simply think that it's just, it's fake, like that's their only argument, it's like, get over it, because if that was the case, we would never watch movies, we would never read books, we would never play video games or anything else like that where stuff is already predetermined. The bottom line is as long as you're entertained, you had a good laugh, or you cried, or you got angry, whatever emotion it was that you needed to get out, you were able to get out, and at the end of the day, you could say, hey, I had a good time, then it's well worth it. And to me, that's my story of professional wrestling. And to be honest with you, it's something that, it's kind of a guilty pleasure. I don't watch it the way I used to, but I'll still tune into a pay-per-view every now and then, because it just gives me a good laugh. And especially looking back at some of the old wrestling and that, I'll be honest, back in the day, they tried to play it out more as if it was real. Before, like nowadays, it is what it is. It's sports entertainment, and they don't try to play it off as being real. Whereas back in the day, it was more in tune with the carnival setting because it has its ties with that. So as a result of that, they try to have you feel as if it was real. And a lot of things, one of the terms being kayfabe, is the thing where you have a persona or whatever within that universe that you're supposed to believe that that character is who they say they are. If they're having a feud, so if you have, say, Abdullah the Butcher, for instance, is feuding with, Terry Funk, then all of a sudden, you're supposed to believe that whatever issue that they have in that ring is real. Now, we know nowadays that that's not the case and it's all scripted, but back in those days, they tried to play it off that way. Kind of like Coney Island and, the different fun houses and stuff like that. The carnivals try to do stuff like that. It had its roots in that. And as a result, that's kind of what they did. Now, if you can go online and look up wrestling documentaries, even if you're not a fan of wrestling, if you're someone like myself who's just a fan of history and liking to know the origins of things, if you watch some of these wrestling documentaries, I'm telling you, they're pretty interesting. And it's a worthwhile watch if you want to be entertained and kind of get an idea where it really came from. Anyway, that being said, I figured I would just talk about that today. It's a little something different. It's not music or anything, although there was rock and wrestling. Hulk Hogan's rock and wrestling back in the day, and they put out an album where they had Pile Driver and all that on there. So they did put out some music back in the day, and it was comical and actually sold some records, which is interesting. But that being said, you know, it was something that it puts a smile on my face when I think about it, because for me, thinking about 80s WWF or AWA and stuff like that, it reminds me of my Pepe and my grandmother back in the day and us watching that. And I can still remember when we would get the pay-per-views at home, and I'd have some of my friends come over, and it was a big deal when we bought WrestleMania 6, went to Kmart and bought the VHS tape, and it was a big deal when we bought it, and that sucker was like $80, which I can't believe that videos cost that much. Thinking about how much they cost now, or even the fact that we don't even have to buy them really, we can watch Netflix or whatever, but to think that a 3-hour tape was $80 is incredible. But anyway, it was a great memory, and it's just something that makes me smile. And I'm sure that many of you people who are listening today probably either watch wrestling or have at one point in your life, so you can relate with what I'm talking about. So anyhow, I just thought I would talk about that today. Just something, you know, a little silly, whatever. And you know, maybe you can think back to a time when you've had a conversation like this, or think of a match that you really enjoyed back in the day. You know, I remember going to the Silver Dome when Andre the Giant fought Hulk Hogan, and it was a huge deal when Hogan slammed him. And you know, I figure as an 8-year-old at the time, it was huge, you know what I mean? So it was just one of the things that I remember being really excited about back in the day. And you know, that's pretty much it. So I hope you enjoyed the show today, and come back next time. We'll talk about something else. We'll have some fun. It might be serious, it might be fun. Either way, I appreciate you guys listening. Till next time, I'm DJ Dell 523 saying goodnight. Thank you for listening to DJ Dell's Dynamic Music Podcast, brought to you by ExtremeCarCleaning.com. If you enjoyed what you heard today and you want to hear more stuff from Dean and myself, feel free to check us out on YouTube. Just go to the Detailers Guild on YouTube, and you can check out many of our great shows, as we're putting out stuff all the time for you, the great listeners there. And remember, if you also want to check out some of my radio shows, you can go to mixcloud.com/DJ DELL 523, and you can check out more than 140 shows that I have posted there. Until next time, I'm DJ Dell 523 saying thank you for listening, and make sure you check out the Detailers Guild on YouTube and like and subscribe to our page, as we would really appreciate it, and it would also let you know whenever we put up new content.